Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Dev Interrupted. We have a super special episode today. We are broadcasting live from the DevOps Enterprise Summit with the man himself, Gene Kim. Welcome to the show.
Hey, so great to be here, and thank you help for help supporting all the great things happening here. This is great.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you on. Obviously, there's a lot of accolades to your name. I'll try to see if I can remember a few of them. Founder of IT Revolution, founder of the conference that we're here at today. You wrote a few books that I think a few people read: Accelerate, Unicorn Project, Phoenix Project. Not that I read every single one of them, but I did. Um, and since you had this amazing, amazing career and experience, where I wanted to start with you is, what are you most proud of that you've seen our industry, improve in with CI and CD? What comes to mind for you?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So I think it's really what you're witnessing here. Right? I mean, so this is our 15th conference, and nothing excites me as much as this because it's the technology leadership community, right? Mostly from large, complex organizations. I've been studying high performing technology organizations for 23 years, right? And so,
Yeah.
you know, uh, that took me into the middle of the DevOps movement, and back in 2009, 2010, right? That was Facebook, Amazon, Netflix,
Yep.
Google, Microsoft, right? There's no doubt that they pioneered the principles and the practices, and they were shocking the world, doing 10 deploys a day. Um,
At
uh,
least.
yes, right, right, right. Yeah, so that was 2009. That
Yeah.
frightened everybody. And then by the time Amazon announced that they were doing 136,000 deployments a day, right? I was like,
Yeah.
that's amazing. But I think my really passion is seeing how those same principles, same practices are being used by large, complex organizations that have been around for decades or even centuries across almost every industry vertical. So this morning we saw American Airlines present. It's not just technology leadership, but with their business partner, right? Mattel, same, right? Business partner who's responsible for the direct to consumer strategy, right? With the technology leader who's making that happen.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So these are Nationwide Insurance. So these are organizations that are 80, 90, 100 years old, right? We heard from the Navy, it's, you know, uh, almost 300 years old. So I just, um, I have so much pride in the fact that, here's a community that's driving, amazing, um, not only principles and practices, right? But, helping their organizations win in the marketplace.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, not only the coolest engineering companies ever are able to do this. Of course, all these other companies are cool, but it seems like it's more accessible to these large organizations. And
Yeah, in
yeah,
fact, to give you
yeah,
one more that just like that delights me so much. It's like one of the best engineering stories I've ever heard from Captain Andy Bean
yeah,
about the work he did with the U.S. Navy Aegis missile defense system. Right. So I just if you
yeah.
can do it for ships, right, and missile systems, right? Yeah, what's our excuse, in commercial industry for not doing the same things, right? We really have no excuse.
Absolutely unbelievable stuff. What are you seeing in terms of trends? More of the cutting edge stuff. Like, where are we going next here?
I don't claim to have any ability to spot trends, predict the future, but what the area that really interests me is just how this community is better spanning the business and technology divide, and I think that's important because I think so much in technology. In fact, the whole Phoenix project is really a story about you know technology leadership that was uh, over all the technology issues were over delegated to technology, right? And quote, the business didn't feel like they needed to co-create, the outcomes. They felt they could just delegate it away when something bad happens. It's poor. It's not the CEO's fault, right? It's the VP of IT of our operations, right?
It's always us.
So I think the stories that we saw today really are uh, business and technology leadership co-creating this future together, right? And I think if I could wave a magic wand, right, that's what every technology leader will be privileged right, to be able to work with a similar type of business leader who is as supportive and as mutually dependent, as what we saw demonstrated today.
One of the things that we've seen, so from our data at Linear B, we're seeing these massive, massive improvements in
Yeah.
deployments, how long it takes, the frequency of deploy that you've been talking about. integration testing, how fast they can run, all of that stuff seems, and it's a lot, from your work, seems to be heading in the right direction. Some of the trends that I'm hearing about are a little bit more now around the developer experience, platform engineering. What can we do to, help the developer? When you hear that terminology, developer experience, what does it mean to you?
Oh, what it means to me, I love it. By the way, that was what we heard from Christina Yakiman and Robbie Dason from Vanguard. We heard that from Randy Shaw, formerly of eBay, right? I mean, that's absolutely. I think it's so important. What does it mean to me? Um, so for 20 years, I got my graduate degree in computer science back in 1995, and yet
Good.
I really gravitated towards ops
Yeah.
because it was my observation that ops where all the saves are made. Right? It saved us from terrible developers. It saved us from terrible security people. But ever since learning the Clojure programming language that runs on the JVM or gets transpiled to JavaScript, I mean, I've it reintroduced the joy of coding back into my daily life. And for me, like, there's all these things I used to enjoy doing as a former sysadmin, right? As a ops lover, right? That I now just hate. I hate creating environments. I hate creating. I hate Bash scripts. I hate configuring CI systems. I hate connecting to databases. I hate connecting because everything is so hard, right? In fact, I actually saw a correctly formed YAML file, like a Kubernetes deployment file, and I was shocked. It was
Yeah.
so different than what I thought it was supposed to look like. So, like, if we can liberate developers, from having to do any of that, and just because we have our friends, in platforms, right, who can actually glue all those things together, connect things for us, hide our secrets, mask our data, right, mask the log files,
Yeah.
update our dependencies. There's never been a better time to be a developer, and if you don't, as a developer, have those things around you, life is really unenjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all a lot of that is around like cognitive
Yeah,
load. Let's let developers focus on what they want to focus on. You talked about enjoyment,
yeah.
areas of, passion for you.
Not YAML files,
Yeah, not YAML
right?
files for you. Nope, not anymore. One of the things that I was able to talk about here was the concept of continuous merge. And that's something we had a packed room, super proud to be able to do that. But that bottleneck that developers are feeling now is I need to get my code merged, I need to get a review, I'm stuck waiting.
Yeah.
If we're able to solve that problem in the way that we've made those awesome gains in CD, if we can do that in the CM area, what do you think that will do for developers in the industry?
I think it's by the way, one of my favorite parts in the DevOps handbook was especially when it comes to merging behavior, you can optimize for the individual, right? And that means, merge never, right? Great for that developer, right? But terrible for everyone else, right?
Yeah.
Or you can optimize for the team, right? And it means, we really need to be merging all the time. I mean, so that was just a wonderful insight. I think it came from Jeff Atwood and who wrote Coding Horror. Anyway, I mean, it was the logic of that argument was undeniable. And so my favorite scene in the Unicorn Project, very much inspired by that, was the 3-day, 4-day merge, right? Where hundreds of 60 managers are,
Yeah.
are getting together in a war room, right? Just trying to process the merges, right? And they're all blowing up, and yeah, so that's a terrible thing. That's
Yeah.
the opposite of
That's
what we
not
want.
fun.
No.
If we're able to like remove that bottleneck, how do you think that will help either industries? Do you think developers are the ones that will, gain the most? Do you think it's the company as a whole? Like, what would that feel like?
Oh, I think for everyone, right? For developers, it means that. By the way, just to show you how viscerally I sympathize with that problem,
Yeah.
I work on mostly single person projects, right?
Yeah.
And there are sometimes I branch and I can't even merge with myself, right? It's,
Okay.
like, it's actually easier for me to retype everything than it is to figure out how to like deal with Git merge conflicts. I mean, it's
Yep.
just terrible. So like, if you have like 50 people, I mean, unthinkable. Just unthinkable that, like, you can't because the longer you wait before merging, right, the
Yeah.
more of these you're gonna have. So yeah, it's great for developers, right? Because you're getting closer to single piece flow. Your code is always tested, so always running in production. It's great for QA because the batch sizes are small. It's great for operations because you're gonna be more reliable,
Yeah.
right? And you know the shrunk based development, is one of the top predictors of performance in the state of DevOps
Yeah.
research. So
Absolutely. Gene, when we're thinking about large enterprise transformations. I've talked to a lot of people here. It seems very, very difficult. Where do you even start to
Huh.
begin when it's, not heading in the right direction and you're trying to just, turn the ship around a bit?
Yeah. So I love it's a great question, and I think I'll give you the answer I used to give, but I'll tell you how kind of what I've learned this week is in general. I think the case study that I love studying the most here at DevOps Enterprise is um, the ones who succeed, right? And they seem to do something really well. They don't pick a project that's too big because they're trying to boil the ocean, and actually the stakes are too high, and it's too easy to scare people so much that they get their air cut off, right? So
Yeah.
that won't go anywhere. There's also a category of talks of projects that that we also never hear about because they scope too small. In other words, they show it to people and they get laughed at because it looks more like a hobby, not
Yeah.
actually solving a real business problem. And I think the ones that for the last since 2014, over 15 events, the ones that really seem to succeed, right, and the ones who get handed more and more responsibility are the ones that solve a real problem that everyone recognizes as an important problem,
Yeah.
and everyone knows that they have the best long-term interests of the company at heart.
Yeah.
Um, so I think the nuance this year was that COVID was a huge driver. We heard from American Airlines. It was so important to deliver capabilities so that passengers felt safe flying.
Yeah.
Right, means touchless, check-in, or whatever it took. Right, in the airports, checking in, etc. Um, we heard it also. We heard Mattel. Right, they want to help launch the Barbie. For collectors. Right, got to do that. Has to happen. Coincident with the movie launch. Anyway, so those are I think they're being very picky about picking urgent projects that cannot fail, and they have the full support of company leadership.
Yeah. Actually, it's a really good learning thing there for me. It sounds like the first thing you probably need to do is interview leadership
Oh,
and say, what is the main thing that I need to solve? And then go, tie your CI/CD transformation to that
oh my
problem.
right,
Yeah.
that'd be customer
Yeah.
number one,
Yeah.
right? And Paul Gaffney, former head of technology at Home Depot, then later Dick's Sporting Goods and Kohl's. Right, I mean, he has beautiful talk on exactly that. Right, to know the business so well
Yeah.
that you exude a sense of confidence and competency that not only can you help, but you understand the problem maybe as well as they do.
Unbelievable. And I think kind of to wrap it up here, to put you on the spot a bit, what was your favorite talk at the conference so far, or anything that kind of, inspired you?
Oh, yeah. So, all of them. Although, I got to tell you, the one that I did not mention that I would be remiss if I didn't mention was a talk from Force Brazil,
Yeah.
right? The reorg rag, right? The butterfly song, right? Uh, a friend showed it to me on Twitter, and just I remember having a series of conversations like, would you be willing to share, the amazing things we were working on, including the Cloud Resume Challenge, and like, hey, maybe even do a number for us, right? It was just for me, it was just a beautiful moment. So he's on Force Brazil. Maybe you can post links to his songs on
Yeah,
Twitter.
absolutely.
On the Chelsea Theater stage was a baby grand piano, right? It was
Yeah,
just,
so cool.
I'll never forget that. That was awesome.
Well, Gene, thank you so much for coming on the pod today and for all the work that you've done, in the industry and with DevOps. We really appreciate you. And we at Linear B are like totally proud to be here. Thank you so much.
Right on. Hey, great meeting you 2 days ago, and
Yeah,
I'll catch you later today.
awesome.
Thank you.